Hi, I'm Shelby Samuel, and today I'll be sharing my testimony. Back in 2007, when I was just 13 years old, I was getting ready for my summer vacation. I just came out of 7th grade, and I was ready for a summer filled with hanging out with friends, playing basketball, going to VBS, having sleepovers, and the whole nine. It all started actually at a VBS. And in one of the days, I went for a sleepover to one of my friends' home. I was there at the sleepover, and we were playing video games, hanging out, and doing different things. And all of a sudden, I started getting these really bad headaches. Eventually, it got to the point where I couldn't even take the light coming from the TV screen. Soon my friend called his mom, she called 911, and I got rushed to the hospital. They did their tests, they did their blood work, and everything came back negative, and they sent me back home. When I was home, the same thing happened. I started getting headaches, and over again, I went to the hospital. Then this happened multiple times, until one time, they finally did an MRI scan and found what the real cause of the problem was. They found that I had tested positive for meningitis. And this was no normal form of meningitis. At first, they thought it was viral, and they thought it would go away after a week or so. And in fact, they had sent me home. And back and forth, I was home and to the hospital, home and to the hospital. Until they finally admitted me to the hospital and found out it wasn't viral, it was bacterial meningitis. And they had never seen this strand before. In fact, they were sending my test results to labs all across the United States. And not just the States, around the world. And they were asking doctors and specialists, we have this boy, he's 13 years old, and he's in our hospital, and we don't know what's wrong with him. We know it's meningitis, but we've never seen this strand before, and we don't know what to do with him. It's like having a really bad cold or a really bad flu, when all you're doing is taking NyQuil and DayQuil, and that's all the doctors could do. They were giving me the NyQuil and the DayQuil equivalent of a medication for this meningitis because they didn't know what to treat. They had never seen this strand before. They were doing blood tests. They did a spinal tap. That means they take the spinal fluid from your spinal cord to test it. They're doing MRI scans. And with each test result, the spread of the meningitis was getting worse and worse and worse. One by one, each of my body systems started failing. Eventually, my lungs started failing, and I couldn't breathe, and I was put on the ventilator. This happened 2 times, and all the while I was in the ICU for more than 2 months. The second time I was put on the ventilator, the doctors came to my parents and they said, we don't know what to do with your son. We don't know if he's gonna make it. We don't even know what to treat. We don't even know what we're treating. And the slim chance that your son makes it out of this, if he makes it out of this, he won't be able to walk. He won't be able to talk. You'll be taking care of him for the rest of your life. I can't even imagine what it was like for my parents, or for any parent, to see their child on a hospital bed, on a ventilator, and the doctor saying that there's no hope. That the only thing keeping your son alive is this machine. And the second you turn this machine off, your son will be gone. The doctors were there, the specialist was there, and they did the absolute best that they could. But from here on in, it was important to know that everything has always been in God's hands. And I say that because the next report is my vitals started coming back. And they took me off the ventilator. And the doctor walks into the room and he has these reports in his hands. And my family members are there. And he says, "We don't know what happened. We don't know how to explain it. In fact, we don't even know if there's a medical term for this. But the meningitis has just been arrested." Remember, they weren't treating it because they didn't know what to treat. They weren't giving any medication for the meningitis because they didn't know what to battle. So when they said the meningitis has just been arrested, that was none other than our Almighty God. He stepped in at the 11th hour and did what he does best. He changes the entire game. From then on in, every blood test, every MRI scan, everything that they did, the meningitis was getting smaller and retreating until one time they couldn't find any trace of it. And they didn't know how to explain it. How could this boy who came into our hospital months ago, who was in the ICU, who was put on the ventilator, just all of a sudden not have this disease anymore? They didn't know if I was gonna make it. And on a ventilator, especially the second time that I was ventilated, they came to my parents and they said, "We don't know if your son is going to make it." The report completely changed to "We don't know if your son is going to make it," to "We don't know what just happened or how your son is still alive." And that's God. And it's always been God. From my first point of diagnosis or from my first headache to the last day I walked out of the hospital room, or the last day that I came out of rehab and I finally came home. From a diagnosis of "We don't know your son is going to make it," or if ever is gonna walk, or if he's ever gonna talk again, or you're gonna be taking care of a son that he'll be physically growing, but his mind is gonna be that of a child for the rest of his life. And now here I am, more than 10, 12 years later. By God's grace, I've been able to graduate college, and I'm working. And I'm doing the Lord's work in children's ministry. And I say all this because at the end of the day, it has always been God. It's always been Him that's been in control. And the beauty of it is, He has never left me alone. And it's not just me that was going through it. It was my family. My brother, my sister, my mom and my dad. They were getting these reports just as much as I was. And it was their faith in God. It was their faith in God that was able to bring them through. And it was the prayer of the saints, not just here in New York, but prayers around the world. Churches around the world were praying. People I've never even met before or don't even know me, they were praying. And the biggest miracle is not just my healing. The biggest miracle is that we have a God who loves us beyond our wildest imagination, and He still hears our prayers today. So my testimony, from someone that shouldn't even be alive according to medical standard, for someone that wasn't even supposed to make it to 2023, let alone just past the summer of 2007. I'm here today because we serve a God that's not bound by medical standards. I'm here today because we serve a God that's not bound by a blood result or an MRI scan or any of those things. But we serve a God that's always and will forever be in control. My testimony didn't end in 2007. My testimony did not end the day I walked out of the hospital or came back home. My testimony and your testimony is something that's happening every single day. Every morning when you get to wake up, a brand new day. Every breath that you take, that's your testimony. That you have a God that loves you so much that He has called you to be part of His own family. That's all of our testimonies.